The phone didn't ring. It vibrated against the mahogany table like a dying heart. In a room thick with cigar smoke and the tension of a multi-million-dollar heroin negotiation, a single text message shouldn't have mattered. But Salvatore Rossi, the most feared man in Chicago, looked down. He expected a threat from a rival Don or a confirmation of a hit. Instead, he saw a string of typos from a wrong number that would burn his empire to the ground. "He's beating my mama again. There is blood everywhere. Please help. Daddy says he will kill her. Apt 4B, 890 West Rook Street." Sal didn't reply with "wrong number." He stood up, racked the slide of his pistol, and typed 3 words that sealed his fate. "I'm on my way." Salvatore Sal Rossi was not a man who believed in coincidences. In the underworld of Chicago, coincidence was just a lazy word for a setup. At 34, he sat at the head of the Rossi crime family table, a position he had inherited in blood and maintained with iron. He wore tailored Italian suits to cover the scars on his body, and a cold, detached expression to hide the scars on his soul. The room was silent, save for the hum of the air conditioning in the penthouse suite overlooking the Chicago River. Across from him sat Dante Vargo, a slimy lieutenant from the East Coast, trying to push counterfeit bills through Sal's casinos. "The split is 60-40, Sal," Dante said, leaning forward, his gold chains clicking against the glass table. "You won't get a better offer." Sal swirled the amber liquid in his glass. He was bored. He was always bored these days. The violence had lost its thrill. The money was just numbers on a screen. He was about to decline the offer when his personal phone, the encrypted one only 5 people in the world had the number for, buzzed. He glanced down. The number was unknown. The area code was local. "He's beating my mama again. There is blood everywhere. Please help. Daddy says he will kill her. Apt 4B, 890 West Rook Street. Now." The world stopped. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Sal stared at the screen. The spelling errors, the desperation. It was a child who had likely tried to text an aunt, a grandmother, or maybe the police, and had fumbled the digits in terror. "Sal?" Dante asked, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Is there a problem?" Sal didn't hear him. His mind flashed back 20 years. He saw his own mother on the kitchen floor. He heard the heavy thud of his father's belt. He remembered the feeling of being 6 years old, hiding under the sink, wishing he was big enough to stop it. He hadn't been big enough then. He was big enough now. Sal stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "The meeting is over." "What?" Dante sputtered, standing up. "You can't just walk out. We have a deal on the table." Sal looked at Enzo, his underboss and oldest friend, who was standing by the door. "Enzo, get the car, the SUV, bring the medical kit." "Boss?" Enzo's dark brows furrowed. "We have the shipment coming in at the docks in an hour." "I said get the car," Sal roared, his voice cracking with a rage that hadn't surfaced in a decade. Dante Vargo made the mistake of grabbing Sal's arm. "Now listen here, Rossi." Sal didn't even look at him. He backhanded Dante with a movement so fast it was a blur. The sound of knuckles hitting bone echoed through the penthouse. Dante crumpled to the floor, clutching a broken nose. Sal stepped over him, typing on his phone as he walked toward the elevator. "I'm on my way. Trace this number," Sal ordered Enzo as they stepped into the private elevator. "I want to know who lives at 890 West Rook Street. Now." Enzo pulled out his tablet, his fingers flying. "West Rook? That's the slums, Sal. Gang territory. The Kings run that block. Why are we going there?" "A little girl texted me," Sal said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "She thinks I'm someone who cares." "Nah." Enzo paused, looking at his boss. He knew Sal's history. He knew the ghosts that haunted him. "Found it," Enzo said, his face paling as the data loaded. "Tenant is Clara Mitchell. Single mother, wait. Sal, you're not going to like this. Tell me. The lease is in her name, but there's a co-signer on the utilities, Detective Richard Gable. Sal's eyes narrowed into slits. Rick Gable, a vice detective known for shaking down dealers and looking the other way for the highest bidder, a dirty cop with a badge to hide his sins. A cop, Sal spat the word like poison. Even better. Sal, if we clip a cop, Enzo warned, the elevator doors opening to the garage. He's not a cop tonight, Enzo, Sal said, pulling a suppressed Sig Sauer P-226 from the glove compartment of the black Escalade. Tonight, he's just a man who hits women. The rain had started to fall over the west side, turning the grime of Rook Street into a slick, black paste. The apartment building was a crumbling brick structure that smelled of mildew and stale urine. Inside apartment 4B, Clara Mitchell was trying to die quietly. She lay curled in a fetal position on the linoleum floor of the kitchen, her arms wrapped around her head. The kicks came rhythmically. Thud, gasp, thud, gasp. "You think you can leave?" Rick Gable screamed. His face flushed red with whiskey and rage. He wasn't wearing his uniform, just a stained undershirt and jeans. "I own you, Clara. Who's going to believe you, huh? The cops? I am the cops." Clara tasted copper. Her lip was split. Her ribs felt like shattered glass. But she didn't cry out. If she stayed quiet, maybe he wouldn't remember Lily. Lily. Her 6-year-old daughter was hiding in the bedroom closet. Clara had shoved her in there the moment Rick had started drinking, pressing her old cell phone into the child's small hands. "Text Uncle Ben," she had whispered. "Tell him to come." Clara didn't know that Uncle Ben had changed his number 6 months ago. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Rick grabbed Clara by the hair, hauling her up. He raised a fist, his knuckles scarred from years of brutality. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the dark. Boom! The front door didn't just open. It exploded inward. The wood splintered with a violence that shook the walls. Rick spun around, dropping Clara. "What the hell?" Standing in the doorway was a figure carved out of darkness. Salvatore Rossi stood 6'3", his expensive wool coat soaking up the dim light of the hallway. Behind him stood Enzo, looking like a grim reaper. Sal didn't speak. He stepped into the apartment, his Italian leather shoes crunching on the broken doorframe. "Who the hell are you?" Rick bellowed, instinct taking over. He reached for the waistband of his jeans, where his service weapon was tucked. "I'm a police officer. I'll drop you right here." Sal moved with terrifying grace. He closed the distance before Rick could even grip the handle of his gun. Sal didn't use his own weapon. He didn't need to. He caught Rick's wrist in midair. There was a sickening snap as Sal twisted the arm backward. Rick screamed, a high-pitched sound that was cut short as Sal drove a knee into his gut. Rick folded, falling to his knees, gasping for air. "Police!" Rick wheezed, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. You can't!" Sal crouched down, his face inches from Rick's. Sal's eyes were voids, empty of mercy. "You like hitting people who can't hit back, Richard? Is that your thing? Do you know who I am?" Rick spat, blood fleeing his mouth. "I know exactly who you are," Sal whispered. "You're a dead man walking." Sal stood up and delivered a single, calculated kick to Rick's temple. The dirty cop collapsed, unconscious, twitching slightly on the floor. Sal turned immediately to the woman. He dropped to his knees beside Clara, his demeanor shifting instantly from executioner to savior. He hovered his hands over her, afraid to touch her injuries. "Mom?" he said softly. "Clara?" Clara flinched, her one open eye wide with terror. She saw a man in a suit, armed, who had just dismantled a monster. "Please," she whimpered. "Don't hurt her. She's just a baby." "I'm not going to hurt anyone," Sal said. "Where is she? Where is the girl?" "Closet," Clara breathed out, before the pain overtook her, and she slumped into unconsciousness. "Enzo, get her to the car, now. Call Dr. Evans, and tell him to meet us at the safe house," Sal ordered. Enzo, usually stoic, looked shaken by the state of the woman. He gently scooped Clara up in his arms. "On it, boss?" Sal walked towards the bedroom. The door was ajar. It was a child's room, but it was barren. No toys, just a mattress on the floor. "Lily?" Sal called out, his voice gentle. Silence. He knelt by the closet door. He could hear tiny, frantic breaths on the other side. "Lily, my name is Sal. You sent me a text message. You told me to come." The door creaked open an inch. A single blue eye peeked out, wide and wet with tears. She held the phone like a shield. "You're not Uncle Ben," a tiny voice trembled. "No," Sal admitted. "I'm not. But Uncle Ben couldn't make it. So he sent me to get you and your mama out of here." Lily pushed the door open. She was wearing mismatched pajamas and one sock. She looked at Sal, then looked towards the living room. "Is the bad man sleeping?" Sal looked back at the unconscious body of Detective Rick Gable. "Yes, he's going to sleep for a long time." Lily stepped out, her lower lip trembling. "Did you fix it?" Sal extended a hand. It was large, scarred, and stained with a speck of Dante Vargo's blood, which he quickly wiped on his pants. "I'm working on it. But we have to go now. Mama is waiting in the car." Lily hesitated, then reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were impossibly small in his. As they walked past Rick's body, Lily squeezed her eyes shut. Sal picked her up, shielding her face against his shoulder. He carried her out into the rain, leaving the ruin of her past behind, and stepped into a war he hadn't planned to start. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as a mid-century modern estate in the woodlands north of Chicago. Surrounded by 10-foot walls and patrolled by Rossi soldiers, it was the only place Sal felt he could breathe. It had been 3 hours since they left the apartment. In the master bedroom, which had been converted into a makeshift trauma unit, Dr. Evans was finishing up. Sal stood in the doorway, a glass of whiskey in his hand, watching the doctor work. Clara was asleep, sedated. Her face was a map of violence, purple, blue, and yellow. Her arm was in a cast, and her ribs were taped. "She's lucky, Doctor," Evans said, peeling off his latex gloves. "Another few kicks to the head, and we'd be talking about brain swelling. As it is, she has a concussion, 3 fractured ribs, a broken ulna, and severe bruising. She needs rest, Sal, weeks of it." "She stays here as long as she needs," Sal said, his voice flat. "And the girl?" Evans asked. "She's in the media room. Enzo is watching Frozen with her." Sal walked down the hallway. The contrast of his life was jarring. In one room, a battered woman. In the other, his deadliest hitman was currently singing along to Let It Go to keep a 6-year-old from crying. Sal entered the media room. Lily was curled up on the massive leather couch, wrapped in a blanket that cost more than her mother's car. She was clean now, having been given a warm bath by the housekeeper, Maria. She was eating a bowl of mac and cheese like she hadn't seen food in days. Enzo looked up, relief washing over his face as Sal entered. "Boss, she's asking about her mum." Sal sat on the coffee table in front of Lily. "Hey." Lily looked at him. She was terrifyingly observant for a child. "Is my mama dead?" "No," Sal said firmly. "She is sleeping. The doctor gave her medicine to make the hurt stop. When she wakes up, she's going to be sore. But she's going to be okay." Lily nodded slowly. She put the spoon down. "Are you a bad guy?" The room went silent. Enzo stiffened. Sal looked at the little girl. He could lie. He could tell her he was a businessman, a savior, a hero. But Sal Rossi didn't lie to children. "Some people think I am," Sal said. "I do bad things sometimes, but I will never be a bad guy to you or your mother. You understand?" Lily processed this. "Rick is a policeman. He says he's a good guy, but he hurts us." "Being a policeman doesn't make you good, Lily. And being me doesn't make me bad. It's what you do that matters." Lily seemed to accept this. She leaned forward and whispered, "Thank you for coming. I was scared I typed the wrong number." "You did type the wrong number, Lily," Sal said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "But it was the right person." Just then, Enzo's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face went ashen. He stood up and motioned for Sal to follow him into the hallway. "Watch the movie, Lily. I'll be right back," Sal said. Out in the hall, Enzo looked like he was about to vomit. "What is it?" Sal demanded. "Is the heat coming down on the apartment?" "It's worse, Sal. Much worse," Enzo hissed. "I had the boys toss Rick Gable's place while we were gone. We found his ledger. He's a dirty cop, Enzo. We knew he had a ledger." "No, Sal. He's not just dirty. He's the bagman." Sal froze. "For who?" "The O'Connors," Enzo said, naming the Irish mob that controlled the North Side. The Rossi family and the O'Connors had been in a fragile ceasefire for 5 years. A war between them would turn Chicago into a graveyard. "And it gets worse," Enzo continued. "Rick isn't just their bagman. He's Liam O'Connor's bastard son. The one he keeps off the books but protects like a wolf." Sal closed his eyes and exhaled a long stream of smoke he wasn't smoking. He had just hospitalized the son of his biggest rival. He had kidnapped the woman that the cop considered his property. "Liam O'Connor will burn the city down to get his son's property back," Enzo said urgently. "Sal, we have to cut them loose. We give the woman some cash, put them on a bus to nowhere. If they find them here..." Sal looked back through the open door of the media room. Lily had fallen asleep, her thumb in her mouth, safe for the first time in her life. He thought about the text message. "Please help." He thought about his own mother, dying on a kitchen floor while the neighbors turned up their radios to drown out the screams. "No," Sal said. "Sal, listen to reason. I said no." Sal's voice was low but thundered with authority. "They stay. Strengthen the perimeter. Call the boys in from the south side. Put shooters on the roof." "You're starting a war for a stranger," Enzo whispered, terrified. "She's not a stranger anymore," Sal said, turning back to look at the sleeping child. "She's family." The front gate intercom buzzed. "Boss," the security chief's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got 3 black Suburbans pulling up to the gate. It's the Irish. They say they want to talk." Sal adjusted his cufflinks. "They don't want to talk. They want to see if I'll blink." He checked his gun. "Enzo, stay with the girl. If anyone comes through that door who isn't me, kill them." Sal walked towards the front entrance, stepping out into the night to face the war he had invited to his doorstep. The rain had turned into a deluge, hammering against the black umbrellas of the men standing outside the wrought iron gates of the Rossi estate. Sal walked down the driveway alone. He wore no coat, the rain soaking his dress shirt instantly, plastering the fabric to his muscular frame. He wanted them to see he wasn't hiding. He wanted them to see he wasn't afraid. 3 SUVs idled, their headlights cutting through the storm. Standing in front of the lead vehicle was not Liam O'Connor, but his right hand, Connor, the butcher, O'Shea, a man known for removing fingers with cigar cutters. "Salvatore," Connor nodded, his voice barely audible over the thunder. "You're looking wet." "You're looking far from home, Connor," Sal replied, stopping 5 feet from the gate. He didn't open it. "Usually you South Side boys get nosebleeds if you come this far north." Connor smirked, but his eyes were cold. "We're just here for a pickup, Sal. You have something that belongs to a friend of ours, a Detective Gable." "I have a woman and a child," Sal said, his voice calm but carrying a lethal weight. "Are they things to be picked up?" "To Rick they are," Connor shrugged. "Domestic dispute. Not your business, not our business. Hand them over and we forget you put a cop in the ICU." Sal laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Rick Gable isn't just a cop, is he? If he was just a cop, you wouldn't be standing in the rain." Connor stiffened. "Careful, Rossi. He's Liam's mistake," Sal said, dropping the bomb. "The bastard son he had with that waitress in a 98. The one he keeps off the books so his wife doesn't find out he broke his vows." The silence that followed was louder than the storm. The men behind Connor shifted nervously. This was a secret that could shatter the O'Connor family from the inside. "You've been digging," Connor hissed, his hand drifting toward his jacket. I didn't have to dig deep. Rick talks when he's scared. Sal lied smoothly. Here is how this goes, Connor. You go back to Liam. You tell him his boy broke the one rule we all respect. Children are off limits. Tell him I'm keeping the girl and the mother. If he wants them, he'll have to burn Chicago to the ground. And if he tries, I'll make sure every newspaper in the city runs the headline about his illegitimate son. Connor stared at Sal for a long moment, measuring the threat. He saw the snipers on the roof of the estate. He saw the resolve in Sal's eyes. This isn't over, Sal, Connor spat, turning back to the SUV. You just started a war for a woman you don't even know. Get off my driveway, Sal said. As the taillights of the Irish convoy faded into the night, Sal let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the gamble. He turned and walked back toward the house. He had bought them time. Maybe a day. Maybe two. Underscore, 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 underscore. Inside, Clara Mitchell gasped awake. The air smelled of lavender and expensive leather, not the metallic tang of blood and stale beer she was used to. She shot up, ignoring the screaming pain in her ribs. "Lily!" she cried out, her voice raspy. "She's okay, Clara. She's okay." Clara whipped her head around. A man was sitting in a wing-back chair in the corner of the dim room. It was Sal. He had changed into a dry sweater and dark jeans. He looked less like a Mafia don and more like a tired father. "Who are you?" Clara demanded, pulling the silk sheets up to her chin. "Where is my daughter?" "My name is Sal. You're in my home. You're safe," he said, keeping his voice low. "Lily is in the kitchen with my associate, Enzo. They are making pancakes. It's 3 a.m., but she insisted." Clara blinked, the memories flooding back. The beating, the closet, the man bursting through the door like a dark angel. You hurt Rick," she whispered. "I stopped him," Sal corrected. "He's a cop," Clara said, panic rising. "He'll come for us. He has friends. Powerful friends." "I know," Sal said, standing up and pouring a glass of water from a crystal carafe. He walked over and placed it on the nightstand, careful not to get too close. "I have friends, too." Clara looked at him. Really looked at him. He was handsome in a severe, dangerous way. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come? It was a wrong number." Sal looked at the floor, then at her. "Because 20 years ago, I wished someone would answer a wrong number for my mother." The vulnerability in his voice stunned her. "Rest, Clara," Sal said, moving toward the door. "Nobody is getting into this house. Not Rick, not the police, not the devil himself." "Wait," Clara said. Sal paused. "Thank you." Sal nodded once, his face unreadable, and slipped out into the hallway. 3 days passed in a strange, tense tranquility. The Rossi estate was a fortress, but inside it was becoming a home. Lily had adapted with the terrifying resilience of a child who was used to chaos. She had wrapped Enzo around her little finger. The giant hitman, who had once strangled a rival with a piano wire, was now regularly seen wearing a plastic tiara while watching cartoons. Clara was healing. The swelling in her face had gone down, revealing high cheekbones and soft, intelligent eyes. She spent her days in the library or the garden, always with a Rossi soldier shadowing her from a distance. Sal watched them from his office window. He told himself he was just protecting an asset. He told himself he was just sticking it to the Irish, but he was lying. On the 4th evening, Sal found Clara in the kitchen. She was trying to reach a mug on a high shelf, wincing as her bruised ribs protested. "Let me," Sal said, stepping up behind her. Clara jumped, then relaxed as he reached over her shoulder. He smelled of sandalwood and gun oil. The proximity sent a jolt through him that he hadn't felt in years. He handed her the mug. You shouldn't be stretching, he murmured. I hate feeling useless, Clara said, gripping the mug. I've been cleaning the guest room. I can cook. I need to do something to pay you back. You don't owe me anything. I owe you our lives, Sal. Clara turned to face him. The kitchen island was the only thing separating them. But I need to know. What happens next? We can't stay here forever. Rick will wake up. The people you turned away at the gate. They'll come back. I'm handling it, Sal said. How? Clara pressed. By killing them? By starting a war? If I have to. I don't want that on my conscience, Clara said, her voice trembling. I don't want Lily growing up knowing people died for her. Sal walked around the island, closing the distance. He took her hands. They were rough from years of scrubbing floors and working double shifts. Clara, look at me. The world you lived in with Rick. That was a cage. This, he gestured to the house, is a fortress. But out there, between the cages and the fortresses, are wolves. I am the biggest wolf. As long as you are with me, the other wolves won't touch you. And what if I don't want to be with a wolf? She asked softly. Sal stared at her, his dark eyes searching hers. Then as soon as you are healed, I will give you a new identity, a pile of cash, and a plane ticket to anywhere you want. You'll never have to see me again. Clara felt a sharp pang in her chest at the thought of leaving. In 4 days, this dangerous man had shown her more respect than Rick had in 4 years. I didn't say I wanted to leave, she whispered. The air between them crackled. Sal leaned in just an inch. He wanted to kiss her. He wanted to erase every memory of Rick Gable from her mind. Crash. The sound of shattering glass from the front of the house broke the moment. The alarm system began to wail, a high-pitched scream that signaled a breach. Sal's demeanor shifted instantly. The man in the kitchen vanished. The Don appeared. He drew the gun from the holster at the small of his back in one fluid motion. "Get down!" he shouted, shoving Clara behind the heavy marble island. "Lily!" Clara screamed, trying to run toward the living room. "Enzo has her! Stay down!" Sal ordered. Gunfire erupted. Not the pop of handguns, but the heavy, rapid rattle of automatic weapons. They were coming through the front windows. "Enzo!" Sal roared into his radio as he moved towards the hallway, staying low. "Status! Breach in the north sector!" Enzo's voice crackled, breathless. "They drove a truck through the gate. I've got the girl in the panic room. We're pinned down." Sal cursed. The Irish had escalated. They weren't just sending a message. They were sending a hit squad. Sal peeked around the corner. 3 men in tactical gear and balaclavas were moving through his foyer, sweeping their rifles. They weren't street thugs. These were pros. Mercenaries paid by the O'Connors. Sal didn't hesitate. He raised his Sig Sauer and fired 3 times. 2 men dropped. The third scrambled for cover behind a pillar, spraying bullets into the hallway. Plaster and wood chips exploded around Sal's head. He ducked back, his heart hammering. He looked back at the kitchen. Clara was curled up on the floor, her hands over her ears. "Clara!" Sal yelled over the gunfire. "Crawl to the pantry. Lock the door and don't open it unless you hear my voice." "Sal, be careful," she cried out. Sal grit his teeth. He had been sloppy. He had let his guard down. And now they were in his house. He moved. He didn't retreat. He attacked. He flanked through the dining room, coming up behind the mercenary pinned at the pillar. The man turned, but Sal was faster. Bang! The foyer was clear for a second, but more shadows were moving on the lawn. Sal sprinted toward the panic room entrance in the library. He needed to get to Lily and Enzo. He needed to regroup. He burst into the library just as the window exploded inward. A canister hissed across the floor, tear gas. Sal coughed, his eyes burning instantly. He fired blindly at the window, suppressing the entry. He felt a hand grab his jacket. It was Enzo, pulling him into the hidden passage behind the bookshelf. The heavy steel door slammed shut, sealing out the gas and the noise. In the sudden silence of the panic room, the only sound was Lily's sobbing. She was clinging to Enzo's leg. "Sal!" Enzo wiped blood from a graze on his forehead. "There's too many of them. They want to burn us out." Sal looked at the monitors on the wall. The security feed showed the house swarming with armed men. They were pouring gasoline in the foyer. "They aren't here for Rick anymore," Sal said, his voice cold as ice. "They're here to end the Rossi line." He looked at Lily, then at the monitor showing the kitchen door where Clara was hiding. The mercenaries were heading towards the kitchen. Sal's blood ran cold. "Enzo," Sal said, checking his magazine. "Take the girl through the tunnel. Get to the boathouse. Get her out." "What about you?" Enzo asked. "I'm going back for Clara." "Sal, that's suicide. The place is filling with gas and fire." Sal looked at Enzo. "She's not just a wrong number, Enzo. Go." Sal hit the release on the door. He wasn't the Don of Chicago anymore. He wasn't a businessman. He was a man in love with a woman he barely knew, running back into a burning building to save her from the wolves. He stepped back out into the smoke. The world was orange and grey. The roar of the fire was deafening, a living thing consuming the Rossi estate room by room. The expensive Persian rugs were fuel. The mahogany paneling was kindling. Sal moved through the smoke like a wraith. His eyes burned, tears streaming down his face, not from emotion, but from the acrid sting of tear gas and melting plastic. He kept a wet handkerchief pressed to his nose with one hand, his Sig Sauer raised in the other. He knew this house better than he knew himself. He knew which floorboards creaked. He knew the blind spots. A mercenary emerged from the dining room, silhouetted against a wall of flames. He didn't see Sal in the shadows of the hallway. Sal didn't hesitate. 2 shots to the chest. The man fell back into the inferno. Sal stepped over the body, heat searing his skin through his clothes. Clara, he reached the kitchen. It was a war zone. The island where they had stood just moments ago was shattered by gunfire. The air was thick with smoke, visibility near zero. "Clara!" he roared, his voice cracking. No answer. Just the crackle of fire and the groan of supporting beams. He crawled towards the pantry door. It was locked from the inside, just as he had ordered. "Clara, open the door!" he yelled, pounding on the wood. The door was hot to the touch. Silence. Then, a faint coughing sound. "Clara!" He didn't wait. He aimed his pistol at the lock mechanism and fired 3 times. The wood splintered. He kicked the door in. Clara was huddled in the corner, clutching a chef's knife, her face streaked with soot and tears. She looked up, terror in her eyes turning to disbelief. "Sal," she rasped, "we have to go, now." He holstered his weapon and scooped her up. She was light, adrenaline giving him strength he didn't know he had. "The fire!" she choked out, burying her face in his chest. "Hold your breath," Sal commanded. He turned back into the kitchen. The ceiling above the island groaned and gave way, sending a cascade of burning debris crashing down, blocking the path to the main hallway. They were trapped. The window, Sal decided instantly. "We're going out the window." He rushed to the far wall. The heat was blistering. He set Clara down for a second, grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the stove, and hurled it through the double-pane glass. It shattered outward. Fresh air, cold, rainy, and sweet, rushed in, feeding the fire behind them. "Jump!" Sal yelled, lifting Clara onto the sill. It was a 6-foot drop to the flower beds below. "What about you?" she screamed. "Go!" He shoved her gently. She tumbled out into the wet grass. Sal climbed onto the sill just as the kitchen door blew inward, the fire draft creating a backdraft explosion. The force threw him out of the window. He landed hard on his shoulder, rolling instinctively to absorb the impact. Pain shot through his arm, but he scrambled up. He grabbed Clara's hand. "Run! To the boathouse!" They sprinted through the rain, the estate burning like a beacon behind them. Gunfire erupted from the front of the house. Enzo's men were arriving, engaging the mercenaries in the driveway. A chaotic symphony of sirens, gunshots, and fire alarms filled the night. They reached the boathouse at the edge of the property, near the river. Enzo was there, crouched behind a pile of crates, his weapon trained on the path. Lily was behind him, wrapped in a tactical vest that was 5 sizes too big. "Sal!" Enzo lowered his gun, relief washing over his scarred face. "I thought you were toast." "Is the boat ready?" Sal demanded, breathless. "Engines are running. We can be downriver in 10 minutes. Sal looked at Clara. She was shivering, soaked and covered in soot, but she was alive. "Get them on the boat," Sal ordered Enzo. "Take them to the safe house in Wisconsin. Do not stop. Do not answer the phone." Clara grabbed his arm. "You're not coming." Sal looked back at his burning home. He looked at the flashing lights of police cars, real police this time, swarming the gate. "If I leave now, they will never stop hunting us," Sal said, his voice hard. "This ends tonight. I have to finish it." "No!" Clara cried, pulling him closer. "You'll die." "I won't die," Sal promised. He cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away a smudge of ash from her cheek. "I have something to live for now." He kissed her. It was desperate, tasting of smoke and rain and promise. It lasted only a second, but it felt like a lifetime. "Go," he whispered. Enzo guided Clara and Lily onto the sleek speedboat. Lily looked back, waving a small hand. "Bye, Sal." Sal watched the boat roar to life and disappear into the darkness of the river. Then he turned back towards the fire. He pulled his phone from his pocket. It was cracked, but working. He dialed a number. "This is Rossi," he said into the phone. "Call the commission. Tell them I want a meeting with Liam O'Connor. Tell them I'm ready to surrender." He hung up. He wasn't surrendering anything. He was walking into the lion's den to cut its throat. The location for the parley was a relic of a dead era. The old ironworks district on the south bank of the river. It was a graveyard of rusted steel skeletons and shattered glass, a place where the city dumped its refuse and its secrets. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the air thick with the smell of wet concrete and oxidizing metal. Salvatore Rossi parked the black sedan, a loner since his fleet was currently ash, and stepped out into the mist. He was alone, or at least that's what he wanted them to see. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt. He hadn't bothered with a suit jacket. His white dress shirt was stained with soot and dried blood from the escape at the estate, and his left arm throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache where he'd landed on it falling from the window. But he didn't look like a victim. He looked like a man walking to the corner store, not a man walking into a den of wolves who wanted his head on a pike. He checked his phone one last time. A single message from Enzo. "Package secure. Wisconsin is lovely this time of year." Sal smiled. It was a cold, predatory expression that didn't reach his eyes. Clara and Lily were safe. The only thing tying him to humanity was gone. What remained was the monster of Chicago, the legend whispered in fear by every hustler and thief from the Loop to the South Side. He walked toward the main foundry, a massive brick cathedral of industry. The heavy steel doors were ajar. He pushed them open and stepped into the gloom. Inside, the space was cavernous, lit by hanging industrial work lights that cast long, swaying shadows. In the center of the concrete floor sat a solitary folding table. Liam O'Connor sat there, looking every bit the aging king. His silver hair was perfectly coiffed, his suit immaculate. Flanking him were 6 men, heavy hitters, armed with automatic rifles. And standing slightly behind him, vibrating with nervous energy and painkillers, was Detective Rick Gable. Rick looked terrible. His arm was in a sling, his face was swollen, and his eyes darted around the shadows of the warehouse like a trapped rat. But when he saw Sal enter alone, unarmed, a sneer curled his split lip. "You have some nerve, Rossi," Liam called out, his voice echoing off the corrugated metal roof. "I expected an army. Instead, you bring me dirty laundry." Sal stopped 10 paces from the table. He didn't speak immediately. He took a moment to study the structural beams above them, the exits, the sightlines. "I didn't come to fight a war, Liam," Sal said, his voice calm, carrying effortlessly through the silence. "I came to end one." "The war ended when my men torched your palace," Liam spat. You're homeless. You're exposed. And you're here to beg for terms." Rick stepped forward, unable to help himself. "Where is she? Where is Clara?" Sal slowly turned his gaze to Rick. It was like a physical weight pressing down on the detective. "She's gone, Rick. She's a ghost now. You'll never see her, smell her, or hurt her ever again." "She's my wife!" Rick screamed, his face flushing a dangerous shade of purple. "I own her." "She's not your wife," Sal corrected softly. "She was your victim. And as for owning people, that's a dangerous mindset for a man who's about to lose everything." Liam slammed his hand on the table. "Enough with the philosophy. You're here to surrender, Rossi. Sign the territory transfer. Hand over the shipping routes. Give us the girl and her mother. Maybe I let you walk out of here. Maybe I just cripple you instead of killing you." Sal reached into his pocket. 6 rifles instantly raised, the metallic clack-clack of bolts sliding home, filling the air. Sal moved slowly, deliberately. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes and a gold lighter. He lit one, the flame illuminating the hard angles of his face. He took a long drag, exhaled a plume of blue smoke, and looked Liam dead in the eye. "Why, you think I've been running for the last 4 hours?" Sal asked. "While your men were playing with matches at my house, do you know what I was doing?" "Hiding," Liam scoffed. "I was at the bank," Sal said, "and then I was on the phone with the city comptroller, and then I had a very interesting chat with the Internal Affairs Division." Rick stiffened. Liam's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Liam demanded. "The ledger, Liam," Sal said, flicking ash onto the concrete floor. "Rick's ledger, the one he kept to ensure you never cut him loose. It details every bribe, every hit, every shipment of heroin you've moved through the north side for the last 10 years. "You're bluffing," Liam growled, though his confidence was wavering. "Rick wouldn't dare." "Rick is a rat," Sal said, looking at the sweating cop. "Rats keep insurance. But here is the beautiful part. I didn't give the ledger to the press. I didn't give it to the FBI. Not yet." Sal took a step forward. The guards tensed, but Sal ignored them. "I sent a copy to your partners in Boston," Sal lied smoothly, "and another copy to the cartels in Mexico you've been skimming off of." The color drained from Liam O'Connor's face. "In the Mafia, stealing from your enemies is business. Stealing from your partners is a death sentence." "You're lying," Liam whispered. "Check your phone," Sal challenged. Liam pulled his phone from his jacket. He stared at the screen. His hands began to shake. It wasn't a text from Boston or Mexico. It was a notification that his offshore accounts had been frozen. Sal had used his connections to trigger a federal audit mere minutes ago. You son of a bitch," Liam breathed. "I'm dismantling you, Liam," Sal said, his voice dropping to a terrifying growl. "Piece by piece, brick by brick. By tomorrow morning you won't be a boss. You'll be a liability. Your own men will put a bullet in your head just to save themselves from the heat I'm bringing down on you." Liam looked at his guards. He saw the hesitation in their eyes. They were mercenaries, paid in cash. If the money was gone, so was their loyalty. "Kill him!" Liam shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Sal. "Kill him now! I'll pay you double, triple!" The guards looked at each other. No one moved. "The accounts are frozen, gentlemen," Sal addressed the guards calmly. "But mine aren't. Walk away now, and there's 50 grand in cash waiting in a locker at Union Station for each of you. Stay, and you go down with the ship." It wasn't a hard choice. The lead guard lowered his rifle, nodded once to Sal, and turned for the door. The others followed like sheep. "No, get back here, you cowards!" Liam screamed. Within seconds, the warehouse was empty, save for 3 men, Sal, Liam, and Rick. Liam slumped into his chair, a broken man. He knew the game was over, but Rick was too stupid, too drunk, and too angry to understand the board had changed. Rick pulled a snub-nose revolver from his waistband with his good hand. "I don't care about the money. I want my life back. You took everything from me." Sal looked at the gun. He didn't flinch. He threw his cigarette to the ground and crushed it with his heel. "You want to shoot me, Rick?" Sal opened his arms wide. "Go ahead. But know this. If you pull that trigger, you die here. If you drop it, well, you'll probably die anyway. But at least you'll die like a man, not a coward." Rick's hand shook. The rage was battling the fear. He looked at Sal, this towering figure of darkness, and his nerve failed him. He couldn't do it. He dropped the gun. It clattered loudly on the concrete. "I'm a cop," Rick sobbed, falling to his knees. "You can't touch me. I have rights." Sal walked over to the gun and kicked it into the shadows. Then he stood over Rick. "You lost your badge the night you put your hands on Clara," Sal said. "Sal, please," Rick begged, looking up, snot and tears running down his face. "I was drunk. I didn't mean it. She knows how to push my buttons." That was the wrong thing to say. The calm facade Sal had maintained for hours shattered. The monster broke the cage. Sal reached down, grabbing Rick by his healthy shoulder, and hauled him to his feet. "She pushed your buttons?" Sal roared, slamming Rick against a rusted steel pillar. The sound of the impact was sickening. Rick gasped for air, his feet dangling inches off the ground. "She is 5 feet 4 inches tall," Sal shouted, his face inches from Rick's. "She weighs 110 pounds. She is a mother, and you used her as a punching bag because you are too weak to handle your own pathetic life." Sal released him, only to deliver a punishing right hook to Rick's ribs, the same ribs Rick had broken on Clara. Rick crumbled, wheezing. Sal didn't stop. He wasn't fighting as a don now. He was fighting as a man who had heard a little girl scream for help through a text message. He grabbed Rick by the collar and threw him across the table, scattering papers and overturning the chair. Rick scrambled backward, blood pouring from his nose. "Stop! I'm sorry! I'm sorry!" "Don't tell me," Sal said, stalking him. "Tell the floor." He kicked Rick in the thigh, hitting the peroneal nerve. Rick screamed and rolled over. Sal stood over him, breathing heavily. He looked at his own hands. They were trembling. He wanted to kill him. Every instinct in his blood screamed to end this stain on humanity. He could snap Rick's neck and walk away, and the world would be a better place. But then he remembered Lily. He remembered her blue eyes looking at him in the safe house. "Are you a bad guy?" If he killed Rick now, in cold blood, while the man was begging, he would be the bad guy. He would be no better than the monsters he fought. Sal took a deep breath, reining in the darkness. He stepped back. "Liam," Sal said, not looking away from Rick. The old Don looked up from the table, his face grey. "What?" "You have a choice," Sal said. "You can die here tonight. Or you can do one last thing to be useful. What do you want?" "He's your son," Sal said, pointing at the sobbing heap that was Rick Gable. "Your mess. You clean it up." Liam looked at Rick with pure disgust. The son who had cost him his empire. "If you kill him," Sal continued, "you go to prison for life. But if you turn him in, if you hand over the corrupt cop to the FBI, along with a full confession of his activities, maybe they cut you a deal. Maybe you get to live out your days in a low-security facility instead of a pine box." Liam looked at Sal, understanding the cruelty of the mercy. Sal was forcing Liam to destroy his own son to save himself. It was the ultimate punishment for a man who claimed to value family, but only valued power. "Do it," Sal commanded. "Call the feds. Tell them you have Detective Gable. Tell them he's ready to confess to the domestic abuse, the racketeering, everything." Sal straightened his collar. He looked at Rick one last time. "You're going to prison, Rick. General population. And I'm going to make sure every inmate in there knows you liked to hit little girls. You won't last a week." Sal turned and walked towards the exit. Behind him, he heard Liam O'Connor dialing a number, his voice shaking as he asked for the FBI. Sal stepped out into the morning light. The sun was blinding, reflecting off the wet pavement. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with air that didn't smell of smoke or blood. He was tired. His body ached. He had lost his home, His fortune was dented, and his status in the underworld was forever altered. But as he walked toward the car, he felt lighter than he had in 20 years. He took out his phone. He typed a new message to the number that had started it all. "I'm coming home." Underscore, 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 underscore. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Wisconsin farmhouse was a world away from the steel and concrete of Chicago. It was quiet here. The only sounds were the wind in the pines and the distant hum of a tractor. Salvatore Rossi stood on the porch, a mug of coffee in his hand. He wore flannel and denim now, though he still checked the perimeter every morning out of habit. The scars on his hands were fading, blending into the calluses earned from chopping wood and fixing the barn roof. He heard the screen door creak open behind him. "You're up early?" Clara's voice was soft, warm. Sal turned. She looked beautiful, healthy. The shadows under her eyes were gone, replaced by a light that made his chest ache. She was wearing one of his old shirts, her hair messy from sleep. "Old habits," Sal said, smiling. Clara stepped out and wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his chest. "Are you thinking about the city?" "No," Sal said honestly. "I was thinking about the tomatoes. I think the frost might get them if we don't cover them tonight." Clara laughed, a sound that vibrated against his ribs. "Look at you, the godfather of tomatoes." "It's a serious business, Clara," he teased, kissing the top of her head. A shout from the yard drew their attention. Lily was running across the grass, a golden retriever puppy nipping at her heels. Enzo sat on the tire swing, reading a newspaper, but he kept one eye on the girl, ever the protector. "She's happy," Clara whispered. "She's safe," Sal corrected, "because of you." Clara pulled back to look at him. Her eyes searched his face, tracing the lines of the man who had walked through fire for her. "You know, I still have that phone. The old one." "Burn it," Sal said. "We don't need it." "I looked at the message again yesterday," she said. "The one she sent." Sal went quiet. He remembered the vibration on the mahogany table. The moment the universe shifted. "I'm glad I didn't type the right number," Clara said softly. Sal cupped her face in his hands. He looked past her, at Lily playing in the sun, at Enzo guarding their peace, at the life he had built from the ashes of his sins. "So am I," Sal whispered. He leaned down and kissed her. It was a slow, deep kiss, filled with the promise of a boring, beautiful, peaceful future. "Come on," Sal said, taking her hand. "Let's go make breakfast. Lily wants pancakes." "Again?" Clara groaned, smiling. "You can't say no to the boss," Sal winked. "I thought you retired from being the boss." "I did," Sal said, opening the door for her. "Now she's the boss." He pointed to Lily, who was currently commanding Enzo to push her higher on the swing. Clara laughed and walked inside. Sal paused for one last second on the porch. He looked at the horizon, where the storm clouds of his past had finally cleared. He closed the door behind him, locking it not to keep the world out, but to keep his world safe within. The wrong number had led him to the only right thing he had ever done. And for Salvatore Rossi, that was enough. That was the incredible story of how a single wrong number text saved a life and toppled an empire. From the gritty streets of Chicago to the heart-warming redemption of a mafia boss, Sal and Clara's journey reminds us that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. It's a story about courage, second chances, and the lengths we go to for the people we love. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who loves a good romance thriller, and subscribe for more gripping stories like this one every week. What would you do if you got a wrong number text like that? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.